Questa è una storia, this is a writing I wrote about my army experience, and it's called The Crucifix Rainbow. This was sort of what it was like in the beginning. Silence. It's Kubrick. Not really, but this was Vietnam. But we might have went to Lebanon. So they'd been drafted 1 year earlier. Okay. Shock value and shell shock abhor at the awkward innocence of a simple infantryman's guttural exploitation of his diseased fiber and moral stature when he evacuated a fried eggplant from his ass upon the Pantelian mounds where Tunisia enshrined Arabic mysticism with the American GI reassuring gas ghostly presence upon this island. Jean Blodel thought persuasively to himself that brave march of consequent eternity will never let him go until he sees that glowing, permeating sun melt his broken heart again. Oh, upon the plains of some yet unknown country or region, Italy was great in inducing a state of cultural nonchalance amongst its ruins past glories, as I saw a piece of spaghetti scraps being thrown towards the amazingly free and docile wild cats and dogs that were as vegetative as their master's afternoon siesta. The latrines being built by the surrounding men's picks and shovels for the defecation to remain in a state of looming denial of the gallantry of sweaty and tired soldiers who do not want to be there due to conscription, yet necessary evaluative terms of Italian use need of a southern man's Nordic identification integration process. So we're going to have to find the scene of my favorite from this part. I don't think they're showing it, but please bear with me. Why this one? I don't know. Let's stop. Value the gallantry of sweaty and tired soldiers who do not want to be there due to conscription and yet necessary evaluative terms of Italian use need of southern man's Nordic identificative integration. For they were them. Una figlia di puttana or son of a bitch, but John was different. He was Canadian. Did dope, drank whiskey, and was a passive aggressive. He seemed harmless enough until he read Bullet Park by Cheever, and seemed graceful enough to ponder 100 years of solitude with the colonel's ascension towards the barracks' hidden literary skies, when Marquez relinquished this military hold with fantasy and yet the damning love of his home, the village that waited for him upon his military leave. His home in Calabria was a two-room shack. His home in Calabria was a two-room shack. His home in Calabria was a two-room shack with an ancient fireplace and yet humbling grandiosity regarding the present-day association with this Cretan and Tyrrhenian small town. Go on. Tyrrhenian still town. Cretan and Tyrrhenian small town. He was humbled by his mother's hardened patience regarding this troubled son's law-abiding obligation towards another country that was not in Canada, but rather in some God-forsaken Alexandrian caserma that was a cross between a hotel and a sewer hole. The vigilante in him being beckoned later by the restraining order of some fascist decree that weighed heavily upon their porcelain faces, as his real superiors were really sitting in some armchair, pulling the strings of puppeteering marches and time that had nothing to do with a pacifistic guy. He later got up and he later got up and put his rifle in his closet and walked on down the mess hall, where he saw his boots tarnish at the weight of gravel and cement. The weighted heavily upon his army jackett's favorite crescendo towards the UN Army had once been. A homosexual chaplain came on to him with a slight brush of a fondling finger upon the reprimanding caress of a fatherly knee in between the loins of beef broth and minestrone. This both scaring and humoring him as courage enlightened his lonely soul with a grin of a mutual non-succumbent towards the desperation of a military leave. The women around him were AIDS-ridden drug addicts and cheap two-bed whores. They were all the only ones that could befriend such a classless, timid, and shy virgin such as he was at the time, as his romantic state was perennially within the that was in his perennially romantic state. Within the madness of sexual promiscuity of the times, remember AIDS? Heroin was thrust in his face by a victim of society one day when he found this fix for a future killer named Mr. L, who shot a mentally ill man from Canberra, just down the street from here. It's 10 minutes right from here. When all he got out of this army was a killer instinct and the reappraisal of these soldiers and delinquent qualities, such as John's was, until he got stoned, that is, and became a loser again. I saw that reserved ingenuity befell upon him as he saw a strange and odd hut being melted out by the straw solar vacuity that enriched the pulsation between a cordial abasement alongside the rhetoric of endearing dialectual idiosyncrasies that were like chopped up pronunciations of linguistic accordingness. Towards a merry romp through deserted plains, aloft upon a linguistic accordingness. Towards the merry romp through deserted plains, aloft a sudden instinctual impact. Upon instinctual impact, he forgave the leaden glint that pervade a dire necklace of military crucifixes upon the chains of his black and that only then invigorated of his black soul that had only then been invigorated by the falsity of such rekindling ridicule of at times the better soldiers, that they were not, it all being a silly stage play of manly worthiness through tormenting means. A residual incorporament of the self when upon a lonely, worthless, when upon a play of a manly worthiness through tormenting means. A residual incorporament of that sly self when upon a lonely, reprimanding some form of instigating, identificating processes, it all of a sudden became a meaningful and dire vacuous sustainability of one's past boring life that was not as a perennial, but rather undergoing a form of credible life experience when challenging the formidable Boy Scouts in his homeland called Canada, when he later became a bricklayer helper for more worthier economical reasons, exchanging his rifle for a brick cart that carried the weight of his condescending grace towards better times within the desperation of one's true social positions, enlightenment towards the valued concepts of real retributive toil. As the dawn came, John Bodale exemplified the freedom by being civic, formal, and free of this ghastly enterprisal of enslaved submission, of this ghastly, come on, Sandro, don't freak out, social positions of enlightenment towards the valued concepts of real retributive toil. As the dawn came, John Bodale exemplified his freedom by being civic, formal, and free of this ghastly enterprisal of enslaved authoritarian figures who were branded by their desire for an afternoon walk without a uniform, without 5 stars on their shoulders, and without the crucifix's sunny rainbow with which their helmets shall ever shine, under which their shiny helmets shall ever shine. Dedicated to the Valfrey, 1984 and 1985. I think this is still on. Okay, so to end it properly, right, this is the song, the music.